Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Lit versus Genre. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Steve.
We're here today to talk about the next episode of Wheel of Time. Before we get into that, though, just a real quick shout out to all of you who are watching. It has been super cool to see more subscribers coming in or people subscribing who hadn't before. And also to have the conversations we've been having. I haven't gotten to respond to the newest batch of comments from a previous episode yet, but I've certainly read them all. And it's just, again, it's so fun to me to get to talk about Wheel of Time whether we're liking it or we're not, depending on your comments. It's nice just to get to have that conversation. So just thank you to all of you. It's been a really fun journey to get to this point, halfway through this particular show that we're watching, which we picked as the first one. We did not know it was going to be this crazy or this divisive, but it's been a pretty fun ride. So just wanted to say that to kick us off.
Yeah, I've been
In
loving the
terms of the
debate.
content, oh, go ahead.
Been loving the debate, and y'all just
Hmm.
remember every time you disagree with Jeff, hit that subscribe button. Every time you can subscribe multiple times. Maybe
Let's
no,
see.
probably not, but
Multiple times. But I think you will disagree with me multiple times. I'll try to give you plenty of fodder to disagree with, which I'm sure many of you will feel. I've been seeing some great responses, especially we were having a conversation about acting last time, and we got some fun responses on that. People talking about characters that they were really enjoying, which I love. Like, I love the debate. I don't want this to be a one-sided thing, which is one reason Steve and I decided to shoot the show with the way we are with this like conversation. We want you all to be part of that. So yeah, that's just been really cool and special for us. So,
we should
but
have a
anyway,
show
on to the
where
episode.
we
Mhm.
address some of our favorite comments. Maybe we should have like a comments
Oh.
show at some point or
Yeah, no,
something.
that'd be
That might be
fun to
fun.
like go through and like pick them out because it's fun to, write back and respond. But I know getting to talk about them and that's you and I to get to have a conversation about some of the comments. Yeah, that could be super fun. Maybe as like a pre thing before the last episode of the
Yeah,
show, or
that'd be
maybe
cool.
after the last episode. I think a pre might be fun. But you all let us know, when would you like to see those responses? For some reason in my head, it just seems like it would be extra hype to do it right before the last episode because we could even be getting the theories and stuff. But yeah, tell us in the chat what your thoughts are on that.
All right, Jeff, how
Hmm?
did you feel about episode 6?
um, all the emotions continue to happen. When I watch this show afterwards, I'm drained. I can do practically nothing. I'm just a shell of a man slumped in my chair. But what brings me back to life is thinking about the writing side of things. Also, the acting, the directing, all those aspects, and really trying to look at it from that lens. I've definitely had my fan reactions previously, and I'm sure there are many fan reactions to this particular episode as well. But what kind of drove me in this conversation that I knew we were going to be having was that talk about the choices that they continue to make. Some of them I think very effective, others not so much. Me, just from again a sort of narrative storytelling standpoint, and something really resonated with me because I had already been thinking about it that you emailed about how they're keeping these clear pushes that the writers showrunners are making of like you should be interested, you should care about this, and at least in some cases, that's falling flat. So I'd love for you to introduce what those moments were for you, because I really do agree, and I think it's a great jumping off point since it ties this episode and last episode together.
Well, let me say as like a non-book reader, and there was like some back and
Yeah.
forth in comments about book readers versus non-book readers. This
Mm.
seems to be
Hmm.
like one divide that people are kind of
Mm.
pushing. Like there's this neat binary between book readers like this and non-book readers like this, which I'm
Yeah.
not 100%
Yeah.
sure is true. How much that is like kind of people's again bringing their kind of own biases into it, or maybe just
Hmm.
selection bias of what we happen to be watching or paying attention to.
Sure.
It might be
Yeah.
100% accurate. I don't know. But as a non-book
Could be.
reader here or partial book reader, I've read Eye of the World. That's the only
Hmm.
one that I've read. These last two episodes have been pretty wild because they've gone pretty far afield of what I know about is happening. And this one especially
Sure.
because it went far afield again. And I'm like, okay, like I'm getting this
Hmm.
stuff that I don't know much about. And then at the end, much like the book Eye of the World itself, it takes a hard right turn into what's going to be the climax. And
Yeah.
I was like, I can't believe of all the things from that first book, that's what they
Uh,
kept. They went, look, Robert did a
right.
hard right turn into the eye of the world. We're gonna do the
Yeah.
exact same hard right turn. I was like, that is wild. And now I feel like the end of
Yeah.
the show is just going to track, at least somewhat, the end of the book, which I consider the worst part of the book by like
Yeah.
a good margin. So I'm like, is the show doing the worst of both worlds for me, the non-book reader? Is it like hitting like everything I don't like about the first book and all this other stuff
Oh.
that I don't like? It's kind of like I don't know. I don't know how to react anymore.
Oh my goodness, this conversation is giving me life. Steve, I was not expecting that reaction, but as you say it, yeah, it was funny to me that is the part they kept. I was gonna wait to kind of talk about the end, but because we're already here, a lot of times we do seem to try to go in order, but forget it. Let's just sort of talk about that end part. I did appreciate that. I felt that they spent more time justifying it than in the book, to a degree. You've got the Amarlin seat, Simon Sanche, mentioning these dreams to Moraine, right? And so that, not much either world, just kind of like, it's in my dreams. We should do something about this.
Right.
So that didn't feel any more set up than the
Well,
books,
like
right? Like that felt
maybe
just as weak of a reason. Go
maybe
ahead.
her dreams do carry more weight because she's the Amerlin seat. So like you could
Yeah,
be like, okay, this is what they're going for. I suppose the kids'
I
dreams, but basically
I
it's the
would have
same.
loved that. Yeah, no, I would have liked that if they had talked about her being, a dreamer or, able to speak prophecy sometimes. And that's something that, Moraine knows about her. That's something that in the previous episode they could have mentioned when they were, warning Moraine about the Umberland seat. Like, I feel like there are ways they could have set that up a bit more, have it hit a little bit harder for sure. But, with her authority position, it does already have more weight than the kids. Yeah.
And you
But yeah,
also don't have the villain
still
being
not
a
much.
moron and going like, I'm going to stop the eye of the world to like everybody he sees. And then they go, oh, we should maybe get
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, for non-book readers, basically the person you've seen with fire eyes has been more of a character in the dreams and talking with the kids, and Eye of the World comes up. So they're just doing it in this kind of alternate way, which again doesn't really feel much more justified to me. So it was an opportunity for, I think, them to make a bit of a narratively stronger choice, and I don't quite think they did. The one that I appreciate more is the justifications that are talked about, like when the Amaryllis Seed is talking to Nynaeve and Egwene about like choice and how you're kind of called for this, and then Moraine talking to them outside the Waygate, talking about how they need to basically attack the Dark One while the Dark One is in its infancy, that type of thing. And then Matt choosing to stay behind, Matt being like, I loved his line about, is it too late to say no? Right?
Mhm.
And then she's like, it's too late. And I was like, is it? It feels like you could just not walk into the thing. And
Right.
then he
Well,
does
that
it.
was the funny thing because this was the first
Right.
Moraine going, it's all part
Mhm.
of the pattern now, and we
Mm,
gotta just do, that kind of thing that
right.
always annoyed me in the books by taking away the
Right.
character's agency.
Right.
And then everybody's like, yeah, I guess it's part of the pattern
Mhm.
now. And they all walk in, and Matt's like, nah.
Yeah.
And I mean, I kind of dig that. I kind of was into
I
that.
liked it.
Yeah.
I feel like such a like so hypocritical in places
Mm.
because obviously before I was certainly in the why are they doing these things instead of the actual source material, which I won't bore anyone by continuing saying, but there are choices, as I've said before, that I feel can be justified if they're good choices, and that wouldn't work for me because it fit his character. Like he literally just asked, "Can we not do this?" It does not look good. I get him being like, "Nah, I'm cool." So I, I liked that choice, honestly. They didn't stay there. So one thing that I will say that I appreciate about the show is I felt that they did a bit more legwork in terms of justifying why are we going to the outer world? Why are we going there now? So I felt that was better than the books, if I can say that, in terms of providing more reason for this hard right turn. But I completely agree with you that it is wild to me that most people agree, at least, in my limited sample set of talking to and reading on internet, most people agree that the end of the book one is weaker. We've said this before, and that that's what they keep. It is just truly humorous. I feel like the writers were thinking, we're gonna get the fans with this. Like it's okay. Like, the stuff
Mm,
we're doing, they'll be cool with it as long as we give them this beat. And I just
right,
wish anybody could have been like, nah, man. like that's
right.
I don't think that's the one that, the book readers are really tied to. So it does at times feel like they're out of touch with a particular aspect of the fandom. Because as we've discussed, obviously, there are people that are okay with like brand new things or change what you want, and it's exciting. Let's see anything that's Wheel of Time related. But I am curious for that crew, for the people that are like, yeah, let's see this kind of new alternate take, this Wheel of Side adjacent stuff they're doing. Is this a beat you wanted? Did you want the ways and where the ways end? Well, Eye of the World. I will say, as for me, I am excited to see the ways. I think the ways are cool, and I am excited to see Eye of the World because that stuff happens in the book. And I like the books, even though I find the ending weaker. I'm still excited to visually see things that I've read about, so I am excited for that part. I just find it strange that they decided to do it.
Yeah, it seems like the fan service is
Mhm.
there, but then it's there in
Yeah,
places that the fans don't really care about, you know? And like kind of
it's
going
so
like,
weird.
"Oh, we have to
Yeah.
do going to the eye of the world and, have
Mhm.
I well, we'll see if, spoilers again if you haven't read the book, but we'll see if Green Man shows up or, who exactly shows up at Eye
Right.
of the
Right.
World. But like
We'll
that's
try not
like
to too much. Yeah,
yeah, I
there.
won't say anything more about that, but but
Because I do love that character. It's one of my, I really do enjoy that one. So I am excited for that. I keep hoping for, these like little moments of captured, book essence. So we'll see.
yeah, we'll
But go ahead.
see. But like
Yeah.
yeah, as a fan myself, I would be like, that's kind of probably the least important for me to do. And like
Yeah.
they again, spoilers, they all get these objects at
Right.
the end, but like you could just give them these objects in like 100 different ways. It didn't really make a ton of
Yeah.
sense in the book to begin with, and like I
Right.
guess my question to
Right.
you, Jeff, is if they changed that, if they just kind of jettisoned the ending, which I thought they were going to do, like for
Me too,
sure,
man. Me
if they had
too.
just jettisoned that as
Mhm.
a Wheel of Time super fan, would that have just you added it to the list of sacrilege that they have committed?
No.
I
N-
I feel like a lot of
Just
people wouldn't.
No, despite my like for the Green Man and other characters, which I will not say, I that well, stuff that just happens at the end, despite aspects of that I enjoy, it's really to me quite weak, that resolution. I agree, it's the worst part of the book. Like if you feel complaint about the travel, but I enjoy that. So for me, no. Like if I'm looking at this from a writing perspective of what's going to tell the most compelling story, yeah, I mean it felt very much like the end of book one was him just needing to write the end of a book, which isn't the way TV works in a lot of cases. Like we could talk about Arcane without getting into much anything, and just how that really ends on like, ah. And that's something you can kind of do in TV and people are okay with. Like you can have a, big battle, whatever that is, a big, climax, and then not resolve things. And people are like, yeah, okay, next season. And that's sort of like culturally accepted. Whereas in books, I find that that's not the case. So it seems like this is a perfect opportunity to use the medium to your advantage to not have that. Sure, there is the question, as you brought up, of how do they get these things, but I definitely would imagine there's, writing ways around that.
It
But go
seems to
ahead, look like you're going to
me,
say something.
yeah, it seems to me that they're keeping kind of like one of the big nonsense things that Jordan did in that first book, which is like kind of introduce the stakes like right at
Right.
the end instead of introduce
Mhm.
the stakes right at the beginning. Moraine even has
Yeah.
this big speech where like finally we're
Mhm.
told what's bad about this and why we need to do
Yeah.
this. The new age will be built on the ashes of all your families or with like
Mhm.
whatever it is that she says. And I'm like, yeah, there are
Right.
the stakes that
Yeah.
for some reason in both the book and the show we don't know about until like right before the end, and then we like ramp up to the end. And I'm like,
Yeah.
why keep that structure and then jettison all this other stuff? You know, like it just seems
And
really interesting to
it
me.
it's mystifying. It really is to me, and that's, again, what I'm very interested to come here and talk about, are these, writing choices that I don't think I ever could have predicted, because due to the, changes that have been made previously, and how the, writers, showrunners seem completely okay to just like change whatever they want. Nothing to me seems sacred at all,
Mm.
in this text. Like they're just like, we can do whatever we want, in this world. And yeah, then they're like, no, no, that was good. That was a good choice in the book. It's like, what? Like, so I feel, we're circling this point because it is, I think, so curious. But yeah, again, everyone, let us know your thoughts. Because yeah, from a writing standpoint, this just seems wacky. Like this was the opportunity to change something. And again, I do want to give them some credit, for justifying it a bit more, I feel like, in this than previously. But otherwise, yeah, why?
Okay,
In
well
terms of
maybe
other things,
yeah, let me just
okay,
say much like
yeah,
the end of book 1, I probably took a hard
mm,
right turn there from the beginning of the video where we were going to talk about things we're supposed to
yeah,
care about in the story.
right, right,
Why do we not? And I think like us talking
mm-hmm,
beforehand, we
yeah,
both kind of agreed that like Moraine's sacrifice in this episode,
yes,
I again, much like with Steppen, and I
yeah,
heard what people were saying in the comments,
mm,
and I understood, I think, what
mm-hmm,
people were saying in the comments about why that was sad. You
sure,
know, I mean, like I think like the was was the Steppen arc sad comes down to, oh, are we setting up this bigger bond between Aes
mm,
Sedai and Warders was a big thing that
sure,
was repeated.
mm,
And that again does feel like a story reason, but I would argue
yeah,
not a story in itself. Like it's still like if
sure,
something's a setup for something else, that's fine, but I don't think it always completely
yeah,
justifies it. Like things have to be justified on their own merits, have to be affecting
right,
and emotionally involving on their own merits, not just because, oh, this will make me feel even more. If I think somebody said in the comments, this is not a
yeah,
spoiler for me, but somebody said if Moraine dies, and I'd be like, well, I think I'd be, pretty upset on its own if a Moraine dies. I don't need like
yeah,
step in to illustrate that or
mm-hmm,
like that reason. And
mm.
you
And I
know,
think it's the length that we were talking about, like,
yeah, like if
because
you were
that
just setting
argument can
that
be
up,
made,
if you were just setting
yeah,
that up, you could have set it up much more efficiently and go
way
on to other
faster.
things for sure. But
Mhm.
they wanted that story to be an affecting story on its own,
Right.
obviously, and I
Similar to
was
this.
similar to this, and I was like left
Yeah.
cold by it, because it wasn't
Mhm.
really like a story between people. It wasn't really like it was like just an
Yeah.
internal struggle sort of, and that lack of drama, that lack of it
Mhm.
involving multiple members of the cast or multiple characters, I just
Right.
found hard to connect with. With
Mhm.
this, I think it's fascinatingly a different issue why I didn't care about this, because
Yeah.
this is a choice that Moraine has to make, right?
Mhm.
Like, this is a sacrifice. This is like
I
to
was just like,
alternate.
"Is it?"
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah, go ahead.
It should be, right? Like,
Should be,
here's
but it doesn't
how
feel like it.
here's how I could see this really working. If like
Mhm.
you have this character and the character's
Right.
like, oh, I have to choose between this thing I've devoted my life to, this like
Mhm.
order, this religion, whatever you want
Sure.
to call it, this group that I'm a high-ranking
Mhm.
member of, and my lover on one
Right.
hand, but I have to save the world, right, or whatever on the other hand, and
Sure.
like this is the choice. Well, that's a dramatic choice. And that's
Yeah.
like an internal conflict
Mhm.
writ large, more so than like I think was happening with Steppen in that. Like I could see where the drama is of
Yeah.
this.
Yeah.
but then like it's not it's not presented like that. Like when they were
Mm,
together, she just goes, "You have to exile me." Like she just like
right.
says it immediately. She's just like, "Duh, you have to
Oh yeah.
exile me, dummy." And she's like,
Right.
"What? No, I." And she's like, "Yeah, this is the only way
Mhm.
for me to be able to go out and do the thing."
Yeah.
And like that line just passed me by. I was like, "Okay, yeah, they have to exile her." And then it
Mm.
wasn't until we got to like the scene of it
The
happening,
scene
and then
itself.
suddenly it's like so emotive, like it's like slow
Yeah.
motion, and it's like they're like touching the
Mhm.
rod of I don't know what it is. I
The Oath. Yeah.
is that from the book? That's from the book?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
well, I mean, not this moment, but yeah, the
But
oath
the
rod. The
oath
oath rod
rod.
is what the Aes Sedai swear on, not to use the
Right.
power against stuff like not to lie, that sort of thing. So yeah.
I found an oath rod somewhat comical. But like they have to hold on, they're both
No, that's
holding
real.
on to the oath rod when they're saying all this, and it's like, oh, they're just relying on
Mhm.
TV tricks, filmic tricks
Mm.
to go, this is emotional and you should feel emotion. Like
Yeah.
they're signaling to me, oh,
Mhm.
now I'm getting this is a big deal to Moraine in this moment, even though when she said it
Right.
a moment ago, it seemed like just like a and there's no
Right.
part in the story before that moment where she has to struggle with
Mhm.
that, where that seems like a hard decision or that seems like
No.
something that maybe she will go the other way
Mhm.
on. Like,
Oh yeah.
and I
We never doubt where she's going. I mean, especially sorry, I'll wait. I'll wait. Please
exactly,
finish.
and I don't want to like rewrite. I don't like the type of
Mhm.
commentary where you're like
Mhm.
I would write it like so, but like you
Do I
know
love that commentary? No,
yeah,
but go ahead.
if you weren't sure what was going to happen up to that point,
Right.
like if this was something that
Oh
Moraine was
yeah.
like, ugh, do I have to go through
Mhm.
with this and leave everything I've ever known for
Mhm.
this? And you're wondering, is she going
Right.
to do that? You're wondering, is
Mhm.
she going to make that choice? Is she going to make that decision in the moment? Now I think you have some suspense, you have some, and I think it
Yeah.
would be more emotionally involving too if that like somehow it was set up so that she's got this choice, she has to make it, you don't know
Mhm.
which way she's going to go, and then she goes a certain way with it. And like
Mhm.
maybe even if that was like a surprise to the queen mother, whatever her name is, and like she's hurt by that or so, or
Right.
like I you should set up
Yeah.
your characters to have to make a hard choice, and
Mhm.
seeing them make that hard choice is the emotional thing, not like an actor emoting so much. So obviously that helps a lot,
Yeah.
but like setting it up that way, I think would be a lot stronger and it would make me care. And this is just me trying to think about
Yeah.
why didn't I care? Why was I watching being
Yeah.
told I'm supposed to feel a certain
Right.
emotion and just not really feeling it?
Yeah, and I think the thing that we're trying to capture and what everyone's trying to capture, well, most when they're talking about writing and stuff is what is going to not only have an impact but impact the most people, right? Because
Mm.
clearly there were a group of people that were very sad in the last episode with Steppen. I'm sure there were a group of people watching this that were sad to see Rain leave, and I thought the actresses in that one scene did a good moment and made it sad. I think there were some other things that made it ridiculous that pulled us out of it, which I'll get to momentarily. Um, but I think this is why you're, talking about like a character should do these things because we found as storytellers and our lives, because as humans we love stories, how to tell effective stories. And yeah, a character making a choice that you do not know which way it's going to go can be very compelling, and that was not the case here.
I was
I
just
will
thinking
say,
about again stuff they're
good,
keeping from the books and stuff they're not. I would have cut
yeah.
Oathrod. I mean, I would have. I don't know. Maybe super fans down in
How
the
dare
comments
you?
tell me, do
How,
we need
how dare you?
Oathrod? Because Oathrod
Steve,
felt
Steve, don't
felt
make me
weird
come
to
through this
me.
camera at you. Don't make me come through this camera at you. No, that's not. We're never going to be able to. But I will say that is something I felt the last episode had versus this one was that in the last episode we did not know for sure what Steppen was going to do. It definitely seems like he was going to die. Like I said, I thought he was jumping when he was on that tower top, and then when he didn't, I was like, oh, maybe maybe there's something. And that moment when Lan was running, I did think maybe that, like I said, maybe Stepan was a dark friend. He went and killed somebody. So
Uh,
I
can I
did
talk about that
feel
for a
something
second? We didn't
in
talk
that moment.
about
Yeah, yeah.
we didn't talk about
Yeah.
it last time. But it
Mm,
was fairly telegraphed, like that he got those drugs from Nynaeve, and then he was gonna drug Lan. Like I
right.
thought, and so yeah, my thought was like he's gonna find him, kill him. So I didn't think he was gonna find him having killed somebody
Yeah.
else or was a dark friend. That honestly, when you said that, like my eyes got big in the last video because I was like, oh, I was not. Uh, I mean,
I
that would
just
have
thought
been
that would have been
cool.
cool.
Yeah, right. It would have
Yeah, you know
been
what I'm
cool,
saying?
but
Like that would have been interesting
it
that
did
he's,
not.
sort of praying to the Forsaken, kind of. It felt like there was a potential for that.
Yeah,
Um,
I just
but yeah,
it
so
didn't enter my
I'm
mind, but suicide
yeah.
definitely was in my mind as like
Well, so then, yeah,
what he
this would
was
have
gonna
felt the
do.
same to you then, because
Yeah,
I would say the thing the last episode had going in terms of the specific part we're talking about from a story different standpoint is I did feel there was a little bit more mystery there. I think it was overall, yeah, it was definitely leaning toward the suicide,
and let me say too,
answer.
like it's not mystery that I want in suspense,
The
right?
choice. It was a choice for him. Is he going to kill himself? Is
Yeah,
he going to kill somebody else? That
but
type of
but
thing.
here's the thing: it's how
Hmm.
how do you struggle with that choice,
Right.
right? Like if
Right.
I know earlier in the
Yeah.
episode that he's like, oh,
Oh,
I
I
want
like
to
this.
kill
Right.
myself, and I
Hmm.
know he's
Yeah.
struggling with that. That's drama. Mystery isn't drama. It kind of goes back to the old
Uh,
Hitchcock, like if
mm,
a bomb just blows up under the table, like you're watching a conversation
mm,
over a table, at the end of it, a bomb just blows up out of nowhere. That's
mm,
not suspense. That's not story. That's not interesting. If you know
right.
the bomb is there the whole time the conversation is happening,
Right.
now that's suspense. Now that's
Mm.
interesting. And like
Uh,
that's the same way I feel like about that. Like oh, a sudden twist. I don't care. I don't care about your
the twist.
twists. I just
I
don't
mean,
care.
I do think Verstappen, there was a bit of a question of what is he going to do or when might he kill himself.
Mm,
So I do think there was at least that question going. Even if again, as we're sort of agreeing, I don't think it was sort of equal choices set up or as big of a question as it could have been. Whereas in this one, I feel like it's not at all, right? Like and they did this sort of from the start. If I'm going to go on my little speech on list, was there anything else you want to say about the Steppen arc before I do
nah, nah,
the Moraine one? No.
nah. I'm good.
So, um, so yeah, if it had been more of a thing about Moraine kind of wanting to stay, but from the very beginning, you've got Lan of all people saying we're home, and her being like meh. So like the entire time, I get this feeling they talk about how Moraine
Mm.
has nothing in her, like room and everything, how she's just waiting to leave again. Like I feel very little ties of Moraine to this place. The main tie I get is the one with Siouan Sanche, right, with the Amaryllis seat, and that is sad to leave someone you love. But again, as you said, since she's the one that makes the pronouncement right away, there's no like question this is going to happen. And again, there were parts that just took me out of it. I thought the actresses did a very good job. It was very emotional, but it felt like they were doing this speech in front of like nobody, especially when she calls her like little fish and stuff. I mean, we didn't
Right.
even talk about the whole intro where we get to see Siouan Sanche as like a setup and stuff. And I do like I like what they're trying to do. I see their attempts, if you will, to say like, oh look, Moraine knows things about Siouan Sanche's past, which shows how close they are as a couple. And yeah, that's really cool. That's a great idea. But to say that in front of like all these Aes Sedai, which can be using their power to like hear, or they're not sitting far away, and it's not like she said it that
Oh
quietly.
yeah,
It just
it's
felt like
not
she was really giving away their relationship
right, right.
completely. With the way and they're both almost in tears, like again, as an emotional beat in and of itself on an island, sure. But in terms of what we know about the world, it's got the issues of you, as you already brought up, that she chooses exile herself right away. It's not like a thing. We've got the setup I'm talking about that this doesn't seem like a hard choice because she doesn't really seem that engaged in wanting to stay in the tower. And then you've got things that they're doing together that do not make sense for the politics of this world.
It was
So
super awkward. I felt
So
awkward
yeah.
watching.
So any of those, and it's a
If I
shame
was
because
actually there, I would have been like, "What? What?
you're
Why
like,
did she? That's she said repeat
right?
after me. You did not repeat after her." I'm like, this is
Well, and
sort of weird.
and the other thing that's tough for me is at the end, the omelet seat says, "Until I call you home." So
Right.
wait, so this exile,
Easy
it's not like
peasy.
this is even
Easy
permanent.
peasy way
Like
out. Yeah.
the Oberlin can just get rid of this whenever she wants, you know?
Exactly.
So I think there's gonna be people that love this scene, that felt, a ton of emotion about it. And that's awesome. It's so cool that you can enjoy that part. But I think if you're someone that either one hates changes, well, I mean, the jury's already out on that one, right? Like, this is not your show. And then two, if you're someone that's noticing like all these other things we're talking about, all of those unfortunately weaken this scene and rob it of the power that it could otherwise have. And I feel that they keep doing this push that we've talked about of they're like, we've got this emotional scene and we really want you to care about it. And they do that with extra time spent and extra emotion. In the last episode, for instance, I agree that Land did an amazing job with his, God, his emotional journey that he was like beating out of himself. But then, as someone else commented, and they took it a bit far, as I mentioned in the video, with him like ripping his shirt off. It's just that like added beat that they didn't need. Like the emotion had already been communicated. Same with Stepan, like the emotion had already been communicated. He said he's having trouble making a choice. You did not need to extend that 2 to 3 times as long as you did. And then the same thing here. Like, okay, if we want a beat of Moraine sort of feeling, the people turning away from her, and then she cares. Honestly, I was surprised. I was like, oh, she cares about that. Okay, but then they really like lingered on those moments, even as then she walks outside. And I get that they wanted Alana turning around from her as well, and that's like a friend turning her back. So okay, I don't know. It's just like they're just lingering on these beats, which if you're someone who's wanting the books is maddening because it's just time. You're like, this could have been your foaming at the mouth, like, but that's gonna have been anything else from the books. And if you don't care about that and you're just looking at it as the way we're trying to from a writing perspective, it still feels, what's the word for it, Steve, where they're like just they're milking it too far. It's like they're just going too hard for, like, if you were a comedian, it's like going too hard for the joke. Like really, like
Mm.
I'm leaning into it. Like you feel this, right?
Yeah, it's
And
really
that's what I
fulsome.
felt from these last two. Hmm.
Yeah, it's really kind of overly effusive and fulsome in a way because like it's just signaling the emotion. It's just like
Yeah,
telling you here's what you're supposed to be feeling and hoping that does
right.
the job of feeling
Yeah.
it. Whereas like
Hmm.
I think there are ways that you can evoke those feelings without having
Yeah.
to slam so hard on like the kind of camera tricks and the close-ups and the
Mm.
lengths of the scenes and the actors themselves having to
Yeah.
really emote to bring it out to you because you could write it in a way that creates those emotions or creates that pull or
Yeah.
like lets you understand this sacrifice in
Yeah.
I feel like a richer way or a
So it
deeper
could
way.
feel like a sacrifice,
Yeah, it just
because
didn't.
that's
I
what
want
they're
it
going
to. Yeah,
for. But
obviously that idea, and I think that
yeah.
idea is solid. And I was watching. I was like,
Yeah.
intellectually, I would
Hmm.
understand being emotionally
Right.
affected by. I have to leave this woman I love, who I never get to
Right.
see, kind of anyway. And
Mm.
this is my life that I've devoted to this organization, and I have to
Right.
leave all them to do this thing, and that is sad. And I was like,
Right.
intellectually, I get it. The story
Yeah.
has not brought me there. It didn't set it up to bring me there. And I think the way you
No.
do it is you let people know that problem right away. You let people know that choice is in the future. And then like you
Well, and you don't
struggle
give
with that
easy outs,
choice. Well, easy out,
right?
yeah, exactly. Her just
Yeah,
saying
you don't give
I
easy
can call
outs.
this off
Yeah.
whenever, obviously is
Just
also
hand wave it
yeah,
at
is
any
also
point. Well,
awful.
and it's not like we saw Moraine struggling with that throughout the episode
Uh-huh.
at all. Like
Right.
I didn't see Moraine like, deciding about, this choice she was gonna have to make. Like you said, she was the one that immediately was like, we just gotta do this, right? Um, to
Because
flip
we
it
don't
around,
know about it until the end
mm,
either. I think it's related to this
mm,
reveal sickness where like in that first scene,
Well,
in that first
oh
scene,
yeah, I
I
was gonna
was
talk
like,
about that.
why
Mhm.
why is any of this happening? Like I was so confused, and you know me, I don't like being confused about stuff. And like, oh well, we'll find out.
Um,
It's revealed that they're in
yeah.
league together, and like that reveal is not good
The,
enough to make up for
uh,
like why she didn't know Moraine was looking for the one dragon. She didn't tell her to
it
go
doesn't
do
make
this. This
sense.
wasn't something that was
Yeah.
just common knowledge that everybody knows about. And then she's
Mhm.
refusing to say it. And I'm like, why are you
Yeah.
refusing to say it? What would be wrong about
I
doing
would agree.
that?
I think that's the hallmark of a bad reveal when you go back and the pieces don't add up and it's clearly been done for the sake of the reveal, right? This is sort of what I felt like with Matt before, you
Uh
know, with
huh.
Matt and the Fade, as I talked about, how the Fade, like, you know, you see all these dead kids, you see Matt, and then it's a reveal that it's actually the Fade that did it, right?
Right.
And like on the back, and it's like, why? And you know, people commented like maybe the Fade couldn't get close to the dagger or something like that. I mean, and listen, a lot of the comments that people give in chat, I'm like, I would have loved it if that had been indicated, right? Like a lot of the
Right.
things people are saying, like about this story about Stefan was really about Lan and Moraine and like Lan's stoicism and stuff like that. I'm like, that all sounds great. I wish the show was doing that.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think we're seeing this continued. Um, and we know that that's what these writers are heavily going for because of the dragon reveal, right? Like I mean
Right.
this is reveal city with this show it feels like. But in terms of the scene you're talking about, I completely agree. If you know we go back and look at that scene with the knowledge that oh they are in league, the series of questions that the Amelin Seed asks Moraine and the pressing of those questions and the response to those questions like make no sense. Like, why
I
would she
had
even ask
no
that series
idea
of
what was
questions, even
happening.
if Leandrin is outing her? Why would, you know, why would Moraine respond the way, like, really, in all their planning, they haven't figured out a better answer that Moraine can give without lying, you know?
Hmm.
So, yeah, that it just, to me, that was a poor reveal.
I
And,
still
mm,
don't understand, even after a conversation later,
mm.
are they still kind of vague about it? Like, no, she's like, nobody can know what we're
Oh,
doing. Yeah, I might
yeah,
have
so
missed
and so
it
she knows
because
what
I've,
she's doing.
yeah, she says she knows what she's
Yeah.
doing, but like, why can nobody else know? Why does this have to be a big
Oh,
secret?
yeah, they don't actually, you're right. They don't, as far as my
Did I
memory
miss
serves, and
it? I might have
obviously
missed it.
comments, feel free to tell us.
Yeah, and
But yeah,
subscribe.
I mean, they did, they did say, I mean, they said that no one could know. Like they did
Right.
address that, but they didn't address the why behind it.
You gotta
Because
tell me why,
again,
dude. You gotta tell me why. Why can nobody know? I'm like so
I get,
confused.
well, I mean, it is in there's a reason in the book for
Oh, okay.
sure.
In which
But
book?
it's
In a later book?
later, because you know, in book one, these characters haven't met
Right.
each
Yeah,
other
yeah,
like
yeah.
this, right? So yeah.
Uh,
Mm.
okay, okay,
But
okay.
so yeah, so I think we've kind of hit the highlights from a you know writing standpoint as kind of the beats that were questionable to us. I do want to give some props to the show, like you know I do I'm not I know comments were talking about nitpicking. I mean that's who I am, but I do want to say that there were moments that I enjoyed. I enjoyed getting to see an episode more focused on Moraine. I thought that was cool. Getting to see more of who she is, what she wants, what drives her. She had some cool moments, I will say, where we got to see kind of her knowledge of the eyes and ears being able to affect things, like when Leandrin came up and was talking about the Two Rivers people, and then, you know, Moraine throws her like, I know about the man you visit. Like, that felt
Who's that?
cool because it had been set up about her knowing secrets and stuff. Go ahead.
Who is that? Who does she know? Who's the man?
Uh, oh no, we've never seen that. It's just more they had said that the
I
Blues
hate
are in
it.
charge of like secrets.
I hate it. Why am I
Uh,
supposed to care about this thing that Moraine has over
mm,
Landra if I have no idea what that thing is? I don't like all
well,
these mystery boxes. I don't like them. And I don't think this is
yeah.
entirely the show's fault because this is how
Mm.
Robert writes the books as well, that you don't know what the heck anything is or why it's important
None of
or
this
what the
happens, but
stakes
yeah,
are.
yeah,
And so like I don't that left me cold where I was like, oh cool, another
yeah.
thing that I don't know. How do I care? And y'all tell me down below
Yeah.
in the comments, how do you end up caring about something like that? Because I
Well,
am having
I
a
think
real
it's more a
struggle with it.
I think it's more a skill reveal, if I will. So basically,
Skill reveal.
L- Moraine was well. No, I'm just
Yeah,
again
yeah,
structurally
I hear what
writing.
you're saying.
Moraine is presented with a problem, right? And she has a solution to that problem. If that problem had come completely out of thin air, then I think I would have been more in your camp of like, oh yeah, no, like what? But they had talked a couple times in this episode about blues being the ones that are in charge of like secrets and information and that type of thing.
Yeah.
So it made sense to me that Moraine had some information just about people for potential political reasons. So I feel like it was partially set up, but I do get your point. Like it could have been more impactful if we had actually seen her achieve what she needed to then be able to succeed later in a problem scenario.
I just wish I don't know what the deal is with this man with Lilandra. Like, is
Mhm.
this her like, oh, I hate men, but I have a secret lover, and she'll be like,
I think
oh,
that's what they were
I'll
implying.
tell it,
Yeah.
I'll tell on you that you
Mm.
actually do like a man or something. Like, was that it,
Yeah,
or
that's
is
what
it
it was.
something?
It seemed like.
Is that all though, or is
I
it
thought
something?
that's what it was.
Oh, well, like I feel like in the way that
Yeah.
it's like written, like that's a possibility, but maybe
Yeah.
then but my mind was also going because everything's a freaking
Mm.
reveal and mystery box later on that like, oh, maybe there's something with this dude that's like threatening, or maybe I guess my mind was blowing it up maybe
Oh yeah, no, I
bigger
think it
than it
was a
actually
complete
was.
throwaway. I think it was a complete Reds are supposed to hate men. You've actually got a lover, and I'll out you. And then like the Reds won't have
I
you
feel like
anymore.
you could have
So
written that.
yeah,
Maybe if you're more overt about it, it sounds
yeah,
corny, but I think you could have written it in a way where I got it more. And then like also,
mm,
I don't know, that doesn't is that really going to like stop her from like is the consequences of that she like actually got with a man like so bad? Like are the Reds really like you can't have a
well,
relationship with a dude? Like you
I mean,
can't be in love with a
again,
dude?
I do think that that's more. I feel it's trickier with this version of
Right.
Wheel of Time, where the dragon who can break the world can be male or female, because the Reds' sort of hatred of men is tied to a man causing the breaking of the world. Well, not Lewis Theron, but then men after that who could channel and really disliking men for that reason, which feels justified to me. But that wasn't. I mean, it was mentioned a couple times in here about the dislike of Red. I'm sorry, the Reds dislike men. Um, so I really do think they were just leaning back on that.
Yeah,
But
it
it could
didn't
have been more.
communicate
Yeah.
enough to me that this would like be so crushing to her that it would shut her up.
Mm,
Like I get, yeah, that you
yeah.
hate men, but that
Mm.
lots of people hate men and then have husbands, like my wife, for example. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. But like, so I don't know. That like fell flat for
Well,
me.
I was trying to say some good things. So another moment that I liked were two jokes. I thought it was funny with Egwene asking about the Emerald seat, how the Emerald seat is the Emerald seat, but then the Emerald seat is a person as well.
Hmm.
And her being like, "Is that confusing?" I thought that was a funny little thing. But the line I really liked was right after that, where Nynaeve is being, her crotchety self, which is very, bookish. Um, and Moraine says that the Amaryllis seed only waits on one person, and you are not her.
Hmm.
I thought that was a fun line because of what they had set up with their relationship. Obviously, we can all have whatever feelings we want about the choice to have Moraine and Suan have the sort of relationship they do. But if you're going to make, a choice like that, I appreciate that you continue with that choice, that you like continue to have the characters do things that are in line with like that aspect of their character.
Hmm.
I enjoyed that a bit. Um,
So let me say one more
mhm.
thing, and maybe this will
Sure, yeah.
take us far afield. There are
Mhm.
my other issue that's kind of happening right now is I feel
Yeah.
like the writing is not embodying characters of like at times what they would think or feel or how
Right.
they act, that things feel like plot
Mm,
or moment driven more than like I'm
Yeah.
really embodying thinking how people would really react in this situation and what they would do in this situation.
Uh,
The I
what you
mean
got for this one? I'm
the big one
curious.
that comes
Yeah.
to mind is at the end. I I was so confused about how everybody arrives at the Waygate from like separately.
Yeah.
Like they all
Right.
got invitations or they're like meet at the Waygate at like
It's
at 4.
it's the moment. It's the moment thing,
They
Steve. They
want to
they
have
want
that
these
moment,
shots.
but I was like,
They want that
why?
moment.
I was like, you're
Mhm.
not in the world because everybody knows
Yeah.
everybody else is there at that point. Like I
Right.
kind of I will say this about the show
Mhm.
the lying without lying, which was not at all convincing to me in book one. I don't think
Mm.
it ever actually happened in book one. I'm just told that it happens, but I don't remember any time that
I
Moraine
mean,
was
she's
straight
kind of
up
sly.
kind.
She's sly in
I
book one.
don't remember any time where she says
That's because
something
she's that
that
sly.
isn't
Don't
just
forget it.
100% spot on. But like, if I hear there are times where like
Mhm.
I think they do a better job of her going, "Oh, I'm gonna tell technically the truth," while be lying. When she
Yeah.
like when she says to Egg, as they will let me know as soon as they're here or something, and
Right.
or I
Right.
and
But
I
they're
can
already
assure you,
there. Yeah.
right? So that's like technically
Mhm.
true that the people will let her know when they're there, but they
Right.
already were there. I was
Already
like,
knows.
and yeah, and I feel like she did that
Mhm.
somewhere else in the episode as well that I can't remember. And
They
I'm like,
should. This was very much a Moraine centric. I'm this,
yeah,
secret keeping badass
I like
episode.
that.
So, but go
It
ahead.
went
Yeah.
nowhere though. I don't know why Moraine told that half truth because like then
To keep them
later
apart
on
so they could all arrive together, of course.
it's like it didn't make sense to do it. It was like I think again they're
Uh,
thinking, oh, let's do this thing that I said I do from the books, and this
right.
will fan service people by making her
Yeah.
lie without lying.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
like if you're
Yeah.
actually inhabiting Moraine in that moment, like you're being true to that character in
Why?
that moment, what would that character be thinking and doing? Okay, she could
Mhm.
have a reason to be doing that, but
Right.
it's never revealed. And two, I don't even like it if it's revealed later because I want to know like why she's doing that. I think the
Yeah.
moment works
There's no reason
cooler.
to keep them apart.
Right, the moment works cooler in that lie without lying if you know why she's lying. Like it legitimately will
Yeah.
just be cooler. And like so then they all get together at the
Mhm.
end and I'm like you've all known what have y'all been doing this whole time?
I
Y'all
know.
been like, "Oh, they're right across town. You
I
just
know.
go around the corner and like we can all hang out and just chill while Moraine's getting,
Yeah.
excommunicated. We can all like have an excommunication party and like just be hanging out doing it. Like
Right.
seriously, Rand and Egg, you haven't seen each other until this moment. The
No, bro.
writers are not living in this world if that's happening. They're
Well,
not being there, being like, what would these
mm,
people really do? How would they really act?
they're writing for moments completely, and we saw this, early on in the show. I think I commented about, they really wanted that shot of like the inn collapsing and
Uh-huh.
Lan like diving over as the smoke rolled over, even though is pulling bricks from the inn the easiest way that she could have attacked the Trollocs, that type of thing. And don't get me wrong, like that was a cool visual, at least, right? And I think what you're describing here is they're like, oh, cool, like world moments. Like, hey, we know Moraine tells half truths. Let's see one.
Right.
Or for instance, I love the line. I think this is probably my favorite line Perrin has ever said when he tells Matt, at least I wasn't stupid enough to like, steal an evil dagger, right?
Right, which
Like,
means they
I
had
love it.
gotten together.
Right. Well, exactly. So as we lead into this, so they want that moment. We as viewers want the moment of getting to see these, them meet up, right?
Right.
But the way it's presented doesn't actually make any sense,
So
which
I
cheapens it,
they
unfortunately.
all got together. Egg and Rand hug each other like
Yeah.
it's the first time they've seen each other. And then
Mhm.
those two get together and then they
But he
say
knows
that and
something.
it's like, how did you know?
Yeah.
Did somebody just tell you
Exactly.
about
Who told you that?
daggers? Right. I guess
Right.
Moraine
Right.
could have just told Perrin about daggers, but when Moraine
Mhm.
tells Perrin about daggers, Perrin's gonna be like, oh, I want to go see my friend. Especially since
Right.
he's just, been
Go through all this trauma. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
He's just had the demons expelled from him.
Right.
I want to go see him. They would have gotten together by this point. And so like I'm like, this is not you're just not and
Yeah.
this is the cardinal sin. If I'm gonna there are things that I've
Mhm.
complained about. I complain about reveals all the time. I complain about,
Right.
things being telegraphed to me and
I don't
not
even
being
need to go off on
choices.
this episode. Stu's
I
doing all the heavy
I
lifting.
know.
Go for
Well,
it.
because this is my cardinal sin of me feeling like you're
Mhm,
not embodying the
mhm.
character and you're not embodying
Yeah,
this situation. You're not really, as a writer, putting yourself
yeah,
into it and going, what would really happen here? You're going, I want these beats. And this is where you
yeah.
are lost. This is where your story is going to go off the rails. If you're like, I have these beats planned out, hell or
Mhm,
high water, we're getting to them. They're gonna
mhm.
happen, and you now can't be in the characters anymore because that's not the
Right.
thing guiding your narrative choices now. And your
And
characters are gonna slip. They're gonna
right.
do weird things. Inexplicable stuff is gonna
Mhm.
happen, and it's gonna kick me out of your story, which is the worst thing, right? To like kick somebody out of the
Yeah.
story, to lose that suspension of disbelief, sort of thing.
Well, I think what underscores this is the extra amount of time they spend in things they really don't need to. Like they've succeeded in creating a particular emotional beat or as close as they're going to get to it, but they linger there in a way that they don't need to. And we've talked about this happening in this episode and the one prior. And so that time could have been used for this stuff we're talking about. And that's what, many people are complaining about most, saying like, hey, I want this time to go for the book, which I agree with. But
Mhm.
if I put my writing hat on, it would be like, well, if these characters are supposed to be so important, right? Like if one of these is supposed to be the, dragon reborn, one of these five, having a bit more time with them is nice. Don't get me wrong, like having a step in episode, cool, but it would have been nice to see the characters we're really supposed to care about.
Right.
This one I feel is a little bit more justified because Moraine is a main character, but even still, then that's two episodes we've gone through where we're just rarely not seeing a lot about these characters,
Mm.
which seem like the five, which are supposed to be really important. And the writers, I can tell, feel that they know they want, like we want those scenes as viewers because they give us those moments with Rand and Egwene, with Matt and Perrin. But again, they sort of give them to us in the wrong place. So, yeah. No,
Yeah,
I,
I
I
need a
agree. And I think
reunion
mm,
before we all rode our horses out
right,
into a field
right.
in the mid. Like
What,
it seems obvious they would have done that.
mm,
I can't imagine a
it's also,
universe where they don't, and now I can't imagine your universe either because I can't imagine a universe where they wouldn't have done that.
right. I will say, I do think that's something that's probably more annoying to us than other people. But I am curious to see if people were like, "What? Why are they all coming up now?" Right? Like, don't get me wrong, I completely agree with this entire conversation. But I feel like because it's a moment people want, they'll forgive stuff. And I even felt myself doing that just a little bit of like, this scene doesn't make any sense, but I really want it, kind
Hmm.
of. And so that want can, weigh more in some people's minds
Yeah.
then like this doesn't make any sense.
Well,
Obviously not for you,
if you
but
say, well, I mean, I want it
mhm.
too. I mean, I just
Oh,
wanted it back
completely.
in
Yeah.
town, so it made sense.
Yeah.
I don't cut that. Don't cut that. Yeah, this stuff's golden. Like
Yeah.
Matt, parents lined up
It's
Matt, and
awesome.
like all of that. Yeah, that's
So
I
nice.
crave that. Have it
Yeah.
happen in town where it like because
Right.
it even like undercuts that emotion I feel because like oh
Mm.
you care so much about each other but you're all like oh we'll meet in the field we'll just like it's cool you're like you want to go over and go see Matt before we go nah we'll meet him
Well,
there I got
well,
I
who
called an
even
Uber already I can't like it's like
who even
no
knows what these characters want anymore? Like at this
yeah
stage,
they love
we
each
spent so
other
little time with them
they
recently.
love
Like,
each
what do they? Yeah.
they love each other. The first thing they would do, finding out, they're asking
Mm.
throughout the whole rest of the episode, "Ooh, are the other ones here yet? Are the other ones here yet?" Marine's
Yeah.
like, "I'll tell you as soon as they are." And so I
Hmm.
feel like the moment they do know that, like when
Yeah.
they introduce Egg back to Nynaeve, Nynaeve would have taken Egg right back to Rand. Why? You know why
Absolutely. As soon
wouldn't
as
she have
soon as
done
they
that?
finish that meeting with their Amelin seat, they're totally walking and
You
going
just
see them.
go. You just go and do it.
Oh,
So like
yeah.
I get like the justification of saying like, oh, but I really
Mm.
like this moment is really fun, and I'll overlook
Yeah.
that it kind of narratively doesn't make sense. Um,
Right.
I want this moment too. Put it in the show. I want it in the show. I
Yeah.
just want it back in town. It's easy. It's not
I
even anything that's tough to do. I guess like we're running out of time a little bit in the episode, but like just
Right, but you didn't need to. Like, you could have not lingered in other places,
yeah.
so Yeah. I think the reason I mention it is because I do wonder if writers feel like I can get away with this, right? Like I've
Mm,
definitely had moments where I'm writing something,
mhm,
I'm like, this doesn't quite make sense.
mm,
Right?
mhm.
Like this doesn't quite click together. But I think it's awesome enough that people will focus on the awesome and maybe not nitpick it, right?
I
And so
will
I do wonder if, that was part of their mindset here.
I will say there's like things that are purely plot wise that don't bother me when like they're
Mm-hmm.
off or they don't
The
completely make sense.
character.
In fact, I don't think there is a
Mm,
story that maybe ever has been written that 100% every detail makes sense because there's a billion details. Somebody can always
mm,
find like something where they stare at it long enough that it like doesn't click and it doesn't
right.
make sense. But the one that's the crime to me is when I feel like the emotional experience of the person is not being
Mm, mhm.
respected, that I'm not being in their head enough, that like the mistake comes because I'm not really trying to feel as the writer how
Yeah.
they would feel or think as the writer how they would think. Like those are the ones
Mhm,
where then I get really upset because it messes with my ability to connect to that person, right? If I'm
mhm,
like, this person
mhm.
isn't acting in a way emotionally
Well,
I that makes sense to me, now I can't
right.
be on that person's level. I can't like, and this is a real
Yeah.
barrier to me to the story. If I can't trust
Mm.
that emotional um journey that they're going on, then I'm completely disconnected from the story at that point.
Well, and that's why I think to counterbalance, I think that's why Matt Stang works personally,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
that to me does feel true to
yeah,
his character.
yeah,
Like that
totally.
moment, like we can agree or disagree about like should it have been the same as the book, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not. But from a character standpoint, it feels 100% justified. Like he's been saying this the whole time, right? That he doesn't want to be involved in this, doesn't want to do it, even right before he makes the decision to stay. So I think, if you are going to make a change, like have it be true to the character. And this one was to me. And I
I
think
love that you
that,
brought that up because I think that's very
mhm,
that's a great example where it works. And why does it work?
right,
Because you're inhabiting that character, you're inhabiting their emotional experience, and like that's
that's
what they're gonna
totally
do,
what he would do.
right?
Yeah.
Now, I
As
mean,
soon as I was like, yeah, that's Matt.
I
Yeah.
guess you can argue
For the
like, is
stage.
he abandoning his friends that he also loves, so
Well, he didn't go
much?
see him. So I don't know how
Exact.
much he really cares.
Right, exactly. And like, Matt was the one that was like, "Yeah, we'll meet there. We'll meet there. It's cool."
Right, right.
Um,
He's like, no, it's fine.
but again, and then would that have worked better if we again knew that this was something that Matt
Hard for
was
him.
struggling with, something that was hard for
Mhm.
him? It kind of is just like tossed off at the end as like a
Yeah.
reveal. And would
Mhm.
it have worked better if I had kind of had some indication that Matt's like, I gotta get back to my sisters, or I gotta do,
Yeah.
something like this. I don't know.
I mean, I certainly wouldn't have minded that, as you say, excommunication party and for them to get together, share some stories, and then go. I mean, Rain even points to it like there'll be plenty of time to catch up once we're in the ways, right?
Hmm.
But yeah, it's kind of too late for me at that point. The one last thing that I wanted to talk about, which is in line with this, is Lowell, which a lot of people were, we talked about Lowell and the talking speed, and everyone was like, Jeff, no, I would have had to like speed up my honest. So the people have weighed in. Lowell's
Yeah, I
time with
felt it
his
again too.
cadence is fine.
He's got too much
Mm,
exposition. He can't talk that slow.
right.
Like you said, oh, Rand could cut him off, and I was like, okay, yeah, that would be kind of a
Yeah.
funny beat. But now
Yeah.
watching this, I was like, oh no, this guy talks all the time. This guy is like constantly telling us important
Well,
information about the world and what's
he
going on.
he is. I was gonna say I do continue to enjoy the actor, as I said last time. Interested to see what the actor does with it. I just thought it was a shame that we get almost none of him in this episode. Like he's there a little bit. Like we get the one with Moraine talking to him, and then of course outside the Waygate. But I really wanted more, and one of the main reasons I wanted more was to get his justification for why he would go with them on this trip.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, previously we do get him liking oddities, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it would have taken almost no time, like 30 seconds, a couple minutes to just have a line at least where he doubles down on that, like his desire to write a book about it or have an adventure or anything that would help us understand why he's doing something that, well, and this ties to one other thing, okay, I have to talk about why he would do this. So, speaking of character, speaking of motivation, speaking of embodying him, while he's standing there, I'm like, I know why he's there, but I don't know why he's there, like in
Right.
the show. This
Well, I
guy,
think
why is he doing it?
two things are
Yeah.
weird about how this is going on in the show. One,
Hmm.
I do kind of read it like, oh, he's very deferential to Moraine, right? And he's very
Sure.
deferential to Aes Sedai, so maybe it's like this is like an honor for him to help out in some way.
Mhm.
Two,
But
we're
but wait, I have to say something real quick to that. But then that robs the choice again. What's so cool about the book is that he doesn't want to go to the ways. And the fact that he is deferential but
right.
still does not want to go to the ways, that amps the ways being scary,
Well, here's the
right?
problem. The Waste is not
Yeah.
scary right now. Like,
I
we
know.
don't know what the Ways are or why this is bad. He does say there's some line something before they go in that like this is gonna be a bad
Uh,
scene or something or because it's
I might have missed that.
I'll go back and try and maybe work that
Mhm.
in. I mean, Moraine says,
Cool.
"Look,
That'd be
everybody
great.
else is gonna die," or oh, that's the other
Well,
part where she lies
that's the
without
last thing
lying.
that's the
Right.
one last thing I want to talk about is the like everyone but dragon dies.
This
But go ahead
extra
and finish
stakes,
whatever.
right?
Yeah.
But like we don't know that the Ways has been tainted. I don't think they ever say something like the Ways was tainted by
Yeah,
the
which I guess
evil.
was spoilers of us. Sorry, everybody, if you've gotten this far. But we don't know if they're going to do it, right? Like, I mean, listen, we can say
Boo
things
doo doo
that happen in
doo
the book.
doo doo
The
doo.
show has proven they will do anything. So, the jury's out as to what's going to
Right.
happen,
So like
in the
right
ways right now.
now, like him going on that
Mm,
doesn't feel super not embodied to me because I'm not thinking
mm,
about the book at all, right? Like I'm not
right.
thinking about like this is horrible to go through the way he reacts in the book that is like this we don't want to
Mhm,
do this is bad news. You know, like
right.
it just kind of seems like, "Oh, will you take us through the portal?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got time before
Yeah, I
I got to
suppose
meet
if it's
some other people in a field like in three
if it's
hours, but I got time to like do this right now for y'all."
I
So it
I
didn't
agree.
like
If it's
throw
not
me out.
scary, yeah, I can agree that he doesn't need as much justification to do it. If it's not a bad scene in the
Hmm.
ways, right?
Right.
Sure, but I still feel like you're rocking a character without any much motivation, which isn't as intriguing. Like, yeah, it's a fun character that he knows things about the world, and I love Lowell. But it just felt like they could have given him some sort of motivation without it taking very long, and it just would have made everything hit just a little bit more. The last thing, though, that is tied to that is this whole extra stakes, as you said, that brought up that like only the dragon will live, everyone else will just like die. So if that's the case, I felt like they were just saying that the other kids will die. It felt like Moraine and Lan weren't included in that because during Moraine's exile, it didn't feel like they were crying because Moraine was. It felt like they were crying over the exile and them
Right.
not getting to be together. It didn't feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
Moraine
yeah.
was going off to die. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's just the extra kids and probably the ogre are going to die in this part. And it was just sort of, again, I get the idea for stakes, but they didn't seem to communicate any reason as to why just other normal folk would die, and Moraine can't protect them or whatever. So it just seemed like this odd insert to create more tension.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it's just yeah, you're just upping the stakes, which I'm
Yeah.
certainly for, but you don't
Yeah.
know why they would all die, and it would certainly
Right.
help the stakes if you could understand it. Like there was
Yeah.
there can't just be stakes. There's got to be clarity to your
Mhm.
stakes. Again, like I think in book one, Eye of the World, you're
Yeah.
told vaguely this is bad and you're not really
Mhm.
told why. And that's why like in the book,
Yeah.
spoilers, when they say this will stop time, which ends up not being at all true, I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I know something
Right.
more and that makes it
Mhm.
mean more. If you just say we're gonna seal the dude back
Mhm.
into his prison, only the dragon can
Mhm.
do it, everybody else is gonna
Right.
die, and then you're like, why? Like you can say that intellectually,
Right.
but you're like, wait, And again, like as a
Yeah.
kid on a journey
Like,
in the
wait,
thing, I
what?
would have asked why. I would have been, well, they don't know, but like,
Well, that's where Moraine lies again. They're like,
right,
because it's so here's what's super weird to me. Egwene asks that exact question. She's like, "What about the rest of us?" I'm
right,
like, that question doesn't seem to naturally follow from it.
uh-huh,
Like, if she had been like, I feel like she asked like, "What happens to the rest of us?" or something.
right,
If she had said like, "What can the rest of us do?" or "What will the rest of us be doing?" or
right,
something like
right,
that.
right, right,
But it seemed like she was literally just repeating the
mm,
thing so then Moraine could lie, basically,
right.
which felt like, yeah, your stakes are awkward. And so, just to kind of, at least for me, end it with this character moment, unless you said something I got to respond to, we talked about how Matt's decision makes sense, but Moraine's and Lance, that makes zero sense. If this is that one of these five is the, dragon, right? Which, and they're keeping that mystery alive, right? Like they do stuff with, oh, Perrin's eyes were yellow like a wolf, but he could still, be, and then Matt, like he had this darkness, but he, so they keep going for it. So as far as we know, Moraine thinks that Matt could still, be one of them.
You wouldn't let
If
them,
it was me and
right?
I've got to take one of these five kids, what it's like spinning a roulette wheel, right? One of these five is going to stop the dark one. You bring all five. Like if one of them's staying behind, that could tank your mission. And she just seems cool with it. I mean,
Well,
yeah, she's
here,
got the stoic face the whole time, but wait,
Jeff,
what?
I have your answer for this. I have your crappy answer for this.
Go for it.
Her speech about it at this point on, it's
Oh,
all the
she's
pattern.
lying.
At
Hmm.
this point on, it's all the pattern. So now, just like she did
This is all the pattern.
20 freaking times in the book, somebody does something that doesn't make sense because it's meant to
Uh,
be. And that
right.
sucks. I yelled about it in the book. I'm yelling about it now.
Mm,
If that's why she's like,
yeah.
oh, he must not be part of the pattern, I guess it's not part of the pattern because it's not coming. Like that, it sucks, right? Come on,
I,
everybody.
I
It
I
sucks.
thought you were going for maybe she was lying. Like when she was like, because she does this whole thing of he's still stronger of body than he should be, like a normal man would have died, right? Like they're, so she says that
There's no
about
way
like Matt
she
still keeping him in the
knows.
running.
I
But
don't think
yeah,
it's
if she can't even feel another channeler, which I'm sure, all the book fans are going to completely go off of that line where she's like, I didn't even know she could channel. I'm like, wait, what? I'm sorry, that's just a throwaway for book fans out there. But I thought for a second you were going to say there she knows at this point that Matt isn't. That's why she's okay with it. And I think maybe that some people will say that, but I would also say the narrative structure doesn't seem to support that because why would it be important to her that someone like Rand would still think that Matt could maybe be the dragon? Like why would she even bother with that extra bit of information I have? So from what we've got, I guess your explanation is the only one that makes any sort of sense that it's the pattern at this point. Um, but yeah, that's
all right.
since that hasn't been set up. Like, if you're setting up the pattern as a religion that people follow, a belief system, then it does make more sense to use later. But it hasn't really been mentioned that much in the show. So, ugh. So yeah, I'll be interested to hear what people think. How did you feel about Moraine's non-reaction to Matt staying? True to Matt's character, but did you think it was true for hers based on what we know? I'll be eager to hear.
All right, everybody. Well, we will be back next week. We will see what
Mhm.
is in the ways.
I'm
We will
excited for the waves.
see.
I
Does
know there was a lot of
anybody
criticism
think
in
any of
this one,
these
but
kids are
I'm excited
actually.
to see the waves.
These stakes also feel real low to me because I don't believe they're going to kill any of these kids. I mean, they can't, right? Like, I guess
I
they can
mean,
do
the
anything now. They can
show,
do anything
I
now, is
mean,
what
I
y'all are saying.
guess I feel like maybe that's also part of what they were trying to do with Steppen is like we'll spend a lot of time on a character and we'll kill him. So we could kill anybody. Which eh,
That was
I mean,
another thing
I
people
don't think
said in the
that's true because
comments
it's a
that
side character.
non-book readers didn't know that this was a red shirt character. I
Which I
don't
love that lie.
know. I don't know if I
Yeah.
believe that. I think it's fairly telegraphed in the show
Mhm.
itself that this is not one of our core group. Just from the fact that he wasn't in the
Yeah.
first 3 episodes, like just makes it feel like
Yeah.
this is not a core character. In the same way Emerald Seat, shows up now out of nowhere. And
Mhm.
sure, she'll show up
Yeah.
again, but nothing would make me believe this is like a core character, at
Right.
least of this initial season or story. So like I don't know if I buy that completely.
I hear that. I mean, we're trained through all the media and stories that we consume. Like, there's so many stories everywhere that we're watching, absorbing, people telling us TV shows, movies, books, audiobooks, podcasts, whatever. But yeah, we're trained for when a new character is introduced, right? Like, is this someone that's going to be staying with us or not? And I think the thing that happens in this show is there's already so many main characters.
Mm.
If you had a show that was about like a person, right, or two people, and then someone new is introduced, you might be like, oh, this person's gonna stay with us for a while. Um, but so far, like we've already got so many characters, and then in a lot of cases, we lose the new people we meet. Like we lost Tom, right? We lost Seppin. So I will say just structurally, I agree with you. I think it was pretty much telegraphed that this person was not going to be a mainstay. I mean, don't get me wrong. Again, I think there still could be questions in people's minds of, will he end up being Nynaeve's warder or something like that. So I think there is some curiosity there, but it's certainly not the same as killing a main character. So I will be interested to see if they can create some of those stakes in the way that they are attempting to thus far. Will some of that pay off in these last two episodes? There's only two left. We shall all find out together.
All right, we will see y'all then, everybody.
Mhm.